does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. Today I'm very excited to check out Untold Adventure Awaits, powered by Rory's Story Cubes. This is for 1 to 4 players, take about 60 minutes to play, and it's for ages 10 plus. And Untold Adventures Await is a structured version of Rory's Story Cubes where you are going to have a board, you're going to have cards, and you are going to be creating a TV episode in a TV series. And from game to game, you are going to be progressing along this adventure that you create. So first I want to mention that this is less of a game and more of a storytelling activity. Also, it is very out there. It is very different. I don't know if the innovative is the word I want to use, but it is one of the most different games that I have ever played in my entire life. As such, the middle part is a little bit jumbled, a little bit more difficult to understand than I would like it to be, but I think I did get across quite clearly how the game works, how the activity works. It's different, it's weird, it's crazy, it's out there, it's storytelling, which I love, but is it good? Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Untold Adventure Awaits. So first and foremost, we're going to handy dandy rule booklet. It is 8 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. And I read through it twice and I thought, oh my gosh, this game is going to be a train wreck. This game is going to be a nightmare because I still have no clue what's going on. Now, I read the rule booklet without the components in front of me. I think it's a lot easier with the components in front of you. But what I'm trying to say here is, this is a game that's a little bit difficult to wrap your brain around. So the first thing you need to understand about this is that it's not necessarily a game. It is more like a structured storytelling activity. You have to know that from the get-go. There's not really winning or losing in this game. There's no competitive nature. It's just you and other people creating a story. So that's the first thing I want to establish. I interviewed them at Essen about this game, and after the interview, I still had no idea what was going on, so I'm going to do my best to try and give you a feel for how the game works. Now, this is normally where I would go over all the components and tell you all about them, but what I want to do is actually mix it up and just walk you through step by step how the game works, and then go over the components as we progress through. So the first thing you need to realize is that this is like creating an episode for a TV show every time you play. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to fill out your episode guide. You're going to create a series name, so the name of the series, so like X-Files or whatever, and then an episode title. So this one was Journey to the Past. We ended up doing 4 episodes in my classroom of this series, and this is where you're going to kind of establish what kind of story you're creating. So when does the episode take place? Where does the episode take place? What do we know about the setting? So this is like magic is possible. We have powers, different things about the setting. What is the tone of the episode? Is it going to be serious and dark and gritty? No, we did funny and lighthearted because obviously I was doing this with a classroom of 9 and 10-year-olds. Setting synopsis. We were in the zombie apocalypse. We had started. We're out in the country working. And then after the episode, you fill in after the episode, so I'm not really going to get into that now. The next thing you're going to do is you are going to roll dice, and then you are going to fill out, start doing this. So I do want to mention that there's a whole bunch of these tiles in the game, like a whole ton of these tiles, and they fit into these inserts, these slots right here. Now let's take a look at the board. So you're going to start with a dangerous dilemma, then the plot will thicken, there will be a heroic undertake, the truth will be revealed, and then there will be a final showdown. But we're going to start with a dangerous dilemma. So you'll flip this over, you'll roll dice, and then you will look at the iconography you have out here, and luckily there's a very big thing on everybody's player board that will tell you about the iconography. So let's just roll some dice, and we'll decide. So at this location, and I'll say the hunting ground, because that's an arrow, and that's what the arrow makes me think of. So at the hunting ground, this threat is going to happen. And let's take a look at this one. This threat has a dark agenda, which is to do something bad to someone or something. And this is where you have to kind of fill it in. This is where you have to start using your imagination and using it in. So we're at the hunting ground, and the Johnny Torch, because obviously we don't have to worry about copyright infringement here because we're just making it up. Johnny Torch is trying to kill us. He's trying to set us on fire. Now, this is where it gets interesting because we already have our episode guide, and this is where this game kind of gets really off the rails and crazy. So we're at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, and we're out in the country, and we're at the hunting ground out in the country, and Johnny Torch is trying to set us on fire. So right now, if you have a vivid imagination, you're like, oh my gosh, there is so much going on right now. We have a superhuman member of the Fantastic Four who is trying to kill us and set us on fire, but there's also zombies that we have to deal with. Now, if that gets you a little bit excited, then this might be a game for you. But let's get to how this game actually works. So the next thing you're going to do is you are going to create your character, and you're going to set up a character profile. And that's going to be this sheet right here. So you're going to give yourself a name, you'll give yourself a job or a role, because they really do want you to fill in a lot of the details. What compels you to go on an adventure? So I have a hunger for cash. This was me. I was Mr. Foster instead of Mr. Forrest. I'm secretly hoping to find a huge pile of cash and retire. So that's why I'm out here. That's why I'm out in the country during the zombie apocalypse. I'm trying to, at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, I should say, I'm trying to find money. And then you also choose your special abilities, and you can choose any special abilities, both realistic or unrealistic superpowers. That all depends on what you put in your episode guide. So we had magic as possible, and we have powers. So I had X-ray vision, and I was the best pancake maker in the world. Also, you'll notice there's a status thing over here, because over the course of your adventures, some different things will happen. Now, I ended up killing my character and then re-rolling a different character, which is something you can also do in the game. So I actually lost my pancake maker ability at one point. But you're going to create character profiles, and everyone will create different character profiles. So once you've done that, you have your characters, you have your setting, you're set off into the world. And the only thing you're going to be doing on your turn is you're either going to ask a question or take an action. So these are the questions down here, and these are the actions. Now, let's go over the questions first. So how do the questions work? The questions are very simple. When you take a question tile, you're going to say, all right, I'm taking a question tile. You'll place it down in front of you. And then you're going to ask a question about the scenario to fill in the story. So for this one, my question might be, is it just Johnny Torch coming after us, or are there other superheroes that also have an issue with us? So at this point, we're going to roll all the dice we have that are not currently out on the board, and we're going to make an answer based on 1, 2, or 3 of the dice. So for me personally, I would just say, yeah, it's just Johnny Torch that is after us. And in fact, the Silver Surfer is actually flying to Earth right now, and he's trying to stop Johnny Torch from killing us because he's got his own vendetta with Johnny Torch. So I have just added to the story a whole new element that we could potentially use later on in the story, that the Silver Surfer is coming. He's riding a star because he lost his surfboard, which Johnny Torch set on fire or something like that, and he's coming to Earth potentially later. So I have just now added a small, gun that we could potentially use in the third act, the second act, the fourth act, the fifth act, whatever. So that's going to full-fledge the story, and you'll have a certain number of these question tokens that you will be able to ask each of the rounds, except for the final showdown, which is just all about actions. And it says right here, so 4, and then you have 3 right here. You also don't have to use all of these. So that would be my whole turn. I would have just added to the story that there is the potential that the Silver Surfer is going to come down at any minute and, alter the story. Now, the other thing you can do is you can take an action. And this is really the heart of the game. Once you know what's going on, it's actually a really simple game. On your turn, you're going to either ask a question or take an action. Now, taking an action is completely different. How taking an action works is you take the token, you put it in front of you, and you say, we're going to do something, or we're going to plan to do something, or I'm going to do something. Something is going to happen. You are going to take an action, but it's not that simple because you have to take a card to see if the action takes place. So let's see. Let's go back to our scenario that we set up. We are out in the country in a hunting ground, and Johnny Torch is trying to set us on fire. There's also a zombie apocalypse which has just started. So you know what I'm going to try and do? I'm going to try and get in a car and get to water, because you know what? I want to be near water when Johnny Torch starts to attack us, because hey, water against Johnny Torch, that sounds good. Also, zombies can't swim, so going to the nearby lake with a car that's at the hunting ground seems like a great thing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and get in this car. We're going to try to go to the lake so we can exterminate the flames and also stay away from zombies. So how you do it is you look at what's called an outcome card. You're going to flip the top card of the deck. So it's either going to be blue or it's going to be red. If it's red, that means you fail. If it's green, that means you succeed. But as you can see, this one has the word but, which means we succeeded, but something bad has happened. This would be just a straight up failure. Sometimes you'll just have straight up successes. And this is an and, which means something good also could happen. But for right now, we have the but. So we did succeed. We got into the car. We're heading to the lake. But since something bad happened, that means we're going to have to draw a reaction card. And this is where the game gets even kind of crazier. So now that we have this reaction card we've drawn, we have to figure out what happens in the story that's bad that causes someone in the story to make this face. So we got in the car, we're heading to the lake, but, oh, this is an interesting one. But I accidentally realized that when we got there, and I was slightly embarrassed, we actually forgot Lilith, the detective who was supposed to be with us. So she is still at the hunting ground while we are at the lake. So this has added a whole new dynamic to the story. I took the action, and now I have progressed along the story that Johnny Torch is still here, the zombies are still here, but now we've accidentally split up the group, which obviously I'm super embarrassed about. And then the next person would go, and they would either ask a question or take an action. And you're going to continue to do this until you've taken all of the action, at which point the plot will thicken. So let's take a look at this icon, and this icon right here is that there's a new evil ally. And you'll roll the dice, and you'll see what the new evil ally is. The new evil ally is an ominous voice that's on a cell phone. So Johnny Torch, we cut to a scene of Johnny Torch caulking on the cell phone, and he says, "Oh yeah, once we combine our superpowers, they will be finished." So that kind of leaves the story really open. We don't know who's on the end of that cell phone, but we do know that there is an evil secret ally that will be coming into the story sooner or later. Perhaps once we ask a couple more questions. And then you'll eventually move on to a heroic undertaking where we move to a new location, the threat does the thing and the stuff, and you're going to get to the truth revealed, and then the final showdown. And honestly, you have to kind of use your imagination. It's crazy with how much you have to use your imagination in this game. But let's start talking about down here, because I feel like I've explained what you're going to be doing up here pretty thoroughly. So down here, you have 4 tiles in this card right here. I personally hate this card, but this card is mostly for people who don't feel like they're actively engaged in the game, or they don't like the way the story is going, so they can hit the button, pause the game, and air their concerns. So kind of break the fourth wall and say, hey guys, I don't like the fact that this story is going here. I don't feel like I'm actively engaged in the story, or I don't know what I'm doing. Anything like that, you just hit the button, flip it over, and you can express your concerns. We didn't use that in the class. In fact, I told the kids not to do that, just use their imagination. But anywho, I guess for people who are not that good at storytelling, that might be something they might want to use. Now let's talk about the other 2 things. We got ideas, we got flashback, and we got the modify. So the modify is pretty self-explanatory. You turn in the token, you modify a dice. So instead of a phone call, you might say, oh, Johnny Torch's elderly father is also with him, and he has the farting power or something like that. I don't know. It depends on the story. Flashback is how you're going to fill in a certain aspect of the story. So you might say, so in this particular instance, let's say that Johnny Torch's cell phone is there, but the flashback is that Johnny Torch was playing Clash Royale all day on his cell phone, so his cell phone was dangerously low, and he didn't have a charger. So now this is kind of set up the fact that Johnny Torch is no longer going to have a cell phone, perhaps in the 3rd act. So you could do the flashback to kind of modify the story or add to the story. Last but not least, you have the 2 idea tokens, and I do like the fact that there's only 2 of these. This kind of makes it so that other people cannot take over the story, because when you ask a question or when you take an action, you are in charge of doing that. So you can go around the table and everybody can add their own unique elements to the game. And other people are not supposed to really talk on their turn. It's all about you creating that part of the game. The idea tokens are the 2 times in the game where you can say, oh, I have this fantastic idea for what the cell phone should mean, or I have this fantastic idea for what the star should mean. And you can do that twice per game, and you can give them the idea. They don't have to take the idea, but you can give them the idea to add to the story, and I do like that. But you'll do that until you reach the final showdown, at which point you will use all the action tiles here, and that will wrap up the story. And sometimes it won't even wrap up the story. Sometimes, like TV shows, it will put you on a cliffhanger. So for this particular example, and I'll go down what happened in our first episode. We ended up having giant bugs that came into the picture in our story, and we ended up in the middle. We ended up riding a giant bug, and I was badly burned, and bad stuff was happening. And we wrapped that into the next episode of the show, and then that second episode ended really weirdly, and we wrapped that into the 3rd 3rd episode of the show. And once you get done with an episode, you even have something down here. So in the end, we ended up in the Stone Age. We ended up time traveling, and there were giant bugs, and I was badly burned and injured, and we were in the past, and we were on top of the bug, riding this giant bug that we had kidnapped from the giant bugs. But as you can see, it started off that we had all intentions of being in the zombie apocalypse out in the country. So the story will rapidly just kind of change into what you want it to change it into. That, in a insanely jumbled nutshell, is how you're going to play Untold Adventures Await. Alright then, Untold Adventures Await, powered by Rory Story Cubes. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, 1 to 4 players, restricted player count. That being said, I'm glad it's not a higher player count, because you could do it with a higher player. You really could, but I feel like it waters down the game a little bit. Part of the fun of this game is that each and every person gets to put their own unique fingerprints on the game as you progress the story, and I do like them. I feel with more players, it is going to be more difficult to keep track of all the stuff going on and all the special abilities and all the different scenarios and where you are. Another thing is this game is completely different. It's completely out there. I have never played anything like this game in the probably thousands of games that I've played. I've probably played about 2,000 to 3,000 games, I think, in my game playing experience. And man, this game is so different, so unique, so crazy, which will be a turnoff to some people because some people like sameness. Another thing is that if you are not a storyteller, this is not the game for you. Just flat out. If you play with people who are not storytellers, or you are not a storyteller, this is just not going to be the game for you. Pure and simple, because it's just all about storytelling. Another thing that a lot of people are not going to like about this game is that it's not necessarily a game. It is more like a very structured but still wildly wide open storytelling activity. And another thing, another comment of this game is that I think this is primarily going to be family game market, because I don't feel like most adults are going to play this game. I think most adults would rather just play a role-playing game than playing this, because a role-playing game, obviously all about storytelling, this all about storytelling. So I feel like this is more of a family weight game. It's definitely not a children's game. 110% not a children's game. So I would strictly relegate this to being a family weight game. Also, the rules are a beast, and not because they're bad rules, it's just because it's really hard to wrap your brain around this game, especially if you don't have the components in front of you. I do dry rule booklet reads where at my work, where I work, obviously, where I just read the rules and I try to figure out the game before I play the game. That was not possible. I read through the rules twice and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be a train wreck. I have no idea what's going on. And I'll be brutally honest, when we first started this game and we were learning the game and trying to wrap our brains around the game, the kids that I was playing with were like, I'm not so sure about this game. I don't think I quite understand it. And I was like, oh, it's okay. Deep down, I was like, I'm not so sure about this game. I don't quite understand it. But once you get moving and once you understand that there's only 2 actions, either taking an action or asking a question, it gets more simpler. It gets more simple. Either one, not the one I said first, though. Any other cons that I have with the game? I mean, it comes with pads, obviously, which eventually are going to run out of papers, but not for a very, very, very long time. Like, you would absolutely have to adore this game and play it on a regular basis to have that issue come up. No, moving on to the pros. This is a great game. This is a great experience. This is so different. This is so unique. And if your kid is age, I'd say 9+ and they like storytelling and they like Rory Story Cubes, this is a must-own game. I'm just going to put it like that. If your kid enjoys storytelling and you enjoy storytelling with your child and you want to go on fantastical, magical, crazy, out there, humorous adventures, this is the game for you. I mean, this game, it just blew my mind. We were talking about this game for weeks afterwards, and it's such an interesting and fun experience to create and weave the story just out of thin air. It's just like, we have 2 dice, we have characters, we have setting, and the game's just like, go, ask questions, explore the story, explore the setting, talk about the evil things and this, and wow, it does it so well. Now, that being said, there will be times where you'll have questions, and the questions are just not in the rules, and you're like, we're just going to go crazy, go off the beaten path. But that's what this game is about, and I like that an awful lot. And the kids in my class who played this, And I chose them selectively because I could see this going over very poorly with kids who have poor imagination or kids who are not good at storytelling. But the kids who I played this with loved it. Absolutely loved it. And we were talking about the story, and we were talking about things we could have done differently in the story, and we were talking about what could potentially happen next in the story, and they kept adding more and more details, and it got more difficult as we tried to string together these details. Like, as I said, our adventure started off, we were like, this is going to be about zombies. We're in the zombie apocalypse, and this happened. And then we rolled the dice, and that went completely out the window because there were giant bugs, and the bugs could start setting fire, and I had to use my pancake ability, and we went to the past, and we were trying to find an old wise man who could brainwash all the humans that the bugs were doing. Then we found that there were aliens, and there were superheroes, and it was just like, oh my gosh. But the kids were so actively engaged in this game. The story was just dripping. And this game, if you have good storytellers, will be dripping with theme because you are creating the theme as you go. And that's awesome. I cannot recommend this game enough. If your children like storytelling and you like storytelling, I think you will get a lot of mileage out of this game. This is a game that I will play in my classroom, and the kids will enjoy it, because especially the storytelling kids. But this is one because my son has a very vivid imagination that I will be saving, and I will be playing with my son when he gets old enough. And I have a feeling this is going to be one of his favorite games for a while because it's just so crazy different. I mean, you can add different Roy story cubes, and you can make the story about just about anything you want it to be. But honestly, even just the 9, and we did mix it up, and we added more story cubes eventually. But just with the starting 9, you still just have an unlimited amount of potential stories and ways you can do things. And in the end, Untold, Adventures Await. It is different, it is out there, but it is great if you have the right people to play it with. So that is Untold, Adventures Await, something completely different, but they nail it. They absolutely nailed it for the people who are interested in the game. So don't let the rule book scare you off. Still an absolutely fantastic adventure to go on with people you care about. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. Storytelling, yay or nay? For me personally, yeah, I love storytelling. And I love storytelling to kids, too. I love really using inflection and pace and just having the children hanging on your every word, sometimes when you don't even know how the story's going to end. And I really enjoy that. But let me know in the comments below. Storytelling, yay or nay? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.